Well, good morning, friends, and welcome to a very snowy January garden tour. I don't think I've ever done a January garden tour, but this is basically what the garden looks like in January. But I thought I would walk you through the garden today to discuss a lot of changes that I plan to make this coming year. Most of them are with structures and the addition of one new garden. So let's just start at the entrance and I'll walk you through all these changes. So the biggest change is going to happen right as you enter the garden this way. So let me open the gate. So I'm not sure if you can really see it in the camera, but our entire backyard is fenced with T-posts and cattle panels. And that works really great for just keeping Grace in and keeping her safe. But really, the older I get and the longer I garden on this particular piece of property, I really just long for a sense of quiet, peace, I guess enclosure, and kind of a secret garden type of feel. And over here we're just really open to everyone that drives by. So we're going to be installing over the cattle fencing 6-foot tall bamboo rolled fencing. It's relatively inexpensive and I think it'll really give me that secret garden feel I'm after. And I have to tell you that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do this year. I was really lacking inspiration for the garden. But then once I went ahead and decided, okay, we're going to save up for this rolled bamboo fencing, and what would that feel like? I feel like my mind just opened to a lot of new and interesting possibilities. So here's kind of the before of my shade garden with the orchard, and we'll see the after in just a few months. So I think too, this will really give you a nice vista to look towards, and then maybe a beautiful just empty pot there right before the arborvitae that I have. I'm not sure about that, but the first change will be the bamboo fencing. Now the next change I want to make is basically creating another garden room. I'm very happy with the main flower walk. It feels enclosed. You can't see what lies beyond, but that's not really happening over here in my hydrangea garden. So here's what I'm thinking. You can't see it right now, but there's stepping stones right here. So as we go along the stepping stones, I'm going to curve and extend the stepping stones this direction so that they take you directly to my grandma's chair. I'll stop the stones right about here, and what I want to do is just build a big arch out of just clippings from our trees, and I'm going to basically just wind the twigs around each other as if I was making a really large wreath, and then I'll have something growing over that archway and really framing her chair. And then over here where I have these lounge chairs right now, we'll have another garden, another hydrangea garden. So that basically, let me back up for you. What I call the hydrangea garden is really just over here along the back of the garage. Here's Rocky out with me today. But what I want to do is surround you with hydrangeas and then have that archway. So we'll have hydrangeas all here. The stepping stones are already here and we'll just extend them. We'll have the path then lead you this way, and then we'll have that beautiful arch, and we'll have to figure out what to grow over the arch. I'm not sure yet. And then that's where the stones will stop. So, and what happens is basically you would walk across the lawn, and once again we can't see it because it's covered in snow, but there is another pathway here leading to her chair. So I feel like all of a sudden this pathway will make sense because you'll come in from the gate over there, walk down and through a hydrangea garden. Now instead of just having hydrangeas on one side, you'll come through that archway, and even though the stones will stop, it will still make sense that I'm attempting to redirect your eye right over here to where my grandma's chair is. So that's change number one, and let me walk you through some more changes. So now let's walk through the other entrance and talk through the other changes I want to make. So this is an area that I'm really happy with. I don't want to make significant changes to this entrance because really for the first year ever since we lived here, I accomplished the goal of not being able to see what lies beyond when you enter. So you really get a nice sense of mystery and wonder. At least that's my hope, that you can't really see what lies beyond. And guys, I planted about 5,000 spring blooming bulbs in this area, and I didn't take any footage of it, but we'll be able to enjoy that come spring. So you come around here, and I'll just plant this as normal with annuals for cutting. I'm walking on the stone path right now, even though you can't see it, and I'll extend the stone path a little bit more. But here's where I want to make some changes. I'm really happy with this Japanese cedar that's right here, but I need some more trees because you might notice that we lost a very old neighboring tree that framed the garden this way. And I really miss the structure that that tree provided, so I'm just going to bring in another tree. So I think what I'm going to do is, if we walk a little bit further, what I want to do is bring in a serviceberry tree right here, a multi-trunk serviceberry to be planted amongst this catmint and the gladiola, to kind of come up and hopefully purchase one that will arch a little bit this way, so that as it grows, it almost naturally kind of half frames the raised beds, because this Japanese cedar is going to continue to grow and it's actually going to touch the garage at maturity. So this path is going to get a lot more narrow, and I feel like if we have this block here and a tree arch here, you're really going to get this beautiful framing effect here, and another feeling of walking through an enclosure to get to something else. So that's my hope for this area. And then of course, as we turn, we'll have that new archway, a new hydrangea garden that I talked about. And with that bamboo fencing right there, I think it's gonna just change the whole vibe of the garden. But let's walk back a little further, and I'm gonna talk about some row cropping. We can take a quick look at some hardy annuals that are doing fine. Got down to 8 the other night, but these guys can handle it. Over here we have some Dara. So you can see it's just fine under there. Actually, it's better under the snow, so I'll cover it back up. You can kind of see back here, we have a row of black raspberries, and we just kind of ended up putting them here because this area had a burn pile in it when we moved here. So what I'm gonna do to kind of utilize the space a little bit better is to move all these black raspberries over to that cattle panel fencing and have it grow along that fence, because there's no neighbors bordering this area. And then this is going to turn into one succession of sunflowers, and then I'll have another one here. So we'll kind of have 2 rows of pro cuts here, because I was putting a lot of my pro cuts in the raised beds, and I think really that's not the best use of my space. I think I'd rather have some row cropping of sunflowers like I used to back here, and I think it'll look beautiful too, and the birds will enjoy it. So the changes I want to make over here in the driveway garden aren't that significant, but they definitely need to happen. Mainly, I've started to make the pathway to the swing split and go into this garden so that it makes harvesting this garden a lot easier. So when I first dug out this whole area, I was really having to walk on the soil to harvest, which is of course not ideal. So to remedy that problem, I'm splitting this pathway, which originally just went to the swing, into 3 different directions. The first direction I've already done. It actually goes back behind this bed where the foxglove are. Then I've just started to split it this way, if you can see the logs here, and then we'll have stepping stones going basically all the way to the birdhouse is what I'm thinking, so that I can come along through here, harvest the gladiolas that are on both sides, the lilies that are all throughout here, and then the snapdragons, the sunflowers, the dahlias and such. Basically, I'll be able to reach everything without having to step on the soil surface. Another thing I've started to do is to rescue all the neighboring Christmas trees from going to the dump. I just pole dig these evergreen trees that were being used as Christmas trees. I just pole dig them into the ground so that the birds have a little more shelter from how cold it gets around here. Now what I do come about mid-March is I just strip these evergreens of all their branches. I throw the branches in the compost pile, and then my husband burns the trunks. But I just enjoy doing that. We started doing it, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, and it's something my husband enjoys doing as well. And the only other thing I have going on back here that I don't think I filmed much of it is that I put in about 500 daffodils back here, but also in years to come I want to add in species tulips and crocus so that this turns into kind of a wild bulb meadow back behind this main cutting garden. I really am so excited for the addition of this bamboo fence. And you know, I was recently reading an older book from Monty Don called The Sensuous Garden, and he was talking about, in one of the chapters, all the sounds of the garden. The birds, water, insects, the crunch of gravel beneath your feet, all of these things that really require a little bit more quiet in order to hear and appreciate them. I have always lived in kind of a suburban or even city type of area, and I've become used to the sounds of the city. They never really bothered me. They still don't bother me, but I do find myself craving for as much quiet and as much peace outside in the garden as possible. Maybe you understand that as well, but instead of hearing the birds behind the sounds of snowblowers, instead of hearing the sound of water mixed in with traffic, instead of hearing the buzzing of bees mixed in with people sometimes arguing in the background, I just long for some quiet. Do you feel that way? Anyway, guys, that's kind of just where I am at mentally, I guess, in the garden at this moment in my life. Let me know how you guys are doing. I hope you're hanging in there this cold January day, reading some good books. I just finished up Sarah Raven's new book, absolutely wonderful. A Year Full of Flowers, it's called. I think it's her best book yet. But I just want to thank you so much for joining me in the garden all last year, and I look forward to another year of gardening and growing cut flowers together. I'll see you next time. Bye.